So thank you everybody for showing up tonight. I know that we have the numbers are starting to slow down as rolling in, so we're ready to go ahead and get started. For those of you who know someone who may not have been able to make it to tonight, because I know we also have back to school night at some of the elementary schools, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the counseling website. I also have here supporting this webinar is Mr. Paul Bryant, one of our counselors. My name is Mrs. Martin. I am also a counselor and department chair for the counseling department. Mr. Bryant will be fielding questions. So as I go along, if you have any questions regarding anything that is being said, please feel free to put it in the question and answer section and he will answer as we go along. There will also be time and space for questions after the presentation. All right. So the first thing I want to do is just mention the fact that you want to know who your student's counselor is. There has been a change in some of the counseling caseloads. So please make note of your counselor based on your student's last name. For those who had me as a counselor last year or previous years, no longer have me as their counselor because we did change some things around and they now have Mr. Turan or some may have Dr. Trandor or Mr. Bryant. Those who had Miss Cohen last year now have me this year. So please, again, make note. If you have any questions about who your counselor is at a later time, again, just, reach out and we will be able to assist you to connect you with your student's counselor. So tonight we're going to kind of go over all of the things that a senior should do to get ready for their post-secondary planning with college applications. So we're going to talk about the to-do list. We're going to talk about Naviance and the Common App and what to do with that. What does that all mean? We're going to talk about the application process and then touch a little bit on financial aid and scholarships, but we will also have different webinars for those topics as well come in later dates, and I will share them at the end of the presentation. So to talk about the things that we need to do now, one of the things that a student should be doing right now is just kind of getting organized. The application process can be very intense because, depending on how many schools they're applying to, if all of the schools have different requirements, and then if they're maybe taking some high-powered classes or have things going on outside of schools, it can be a lot. And so one of the things that we recommend is that you have your student have an organizational system, whether it's a spreadsheet or if you're old school like me, pen and paper, maybe even starting a binder. There are, tools that you can buy on Amazon that kind of just helps you get organized to keep track of what you need to do for each school, what has been done, and what still needs to be done. And then, just kind of checking those things off as you go along. The other thing I want to mention is that students should still continue to focus on grades and attendance. They are not finished yet. And I know senioritis has already hit some of us. And if it hasn't hit yet, it will probably hit soon. But we do have to focus on grades and attendance. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But essentially, grades and attendance will be reflected through the senior year. And if there's a significant difference from the information that was submitted during the application process and the information that's submitted at the end of the year, that could have an impact on their acceptance. So when your students start to say, oh, we're done, please remind them that they're not. I also encourage students to just attend college rep visits. So what that is that we have a list, and you should have gotten an email about it from our counseling secretary last week, but college reps come to our school and, they will talk about what their school has to offer. And I do encourage your students to attend those rep visits as well as visit campuses themselves so that they can actually see what goes on in action, what it looks like, and kind of get a feel for if this is a good fit for them. And once they kind of do that, they should finalize their list and have at least 4 to 8 colleges that they want to apply to. And those 4 to 8 lists, 4 to 8 schools should be a diverse list. So it should be schools that are safe schools, meaning that they are definitely, have what a school is looking for, like almost as if it's a guarantee that they will get accepted into that school. A target school, which is they are right where they should be. If the school is looking for someone with a 3.0 GPA and they have a 3.0 GPA, and they kind of fit the bill, that's their target school. And then also some reach schools, which is where, it may be a bit of a reach to kind of get into that school, but it's just, maybe just a little bit over. So if they have a 3.0, but the school is looking for a 3.2, it's still a possibility that they could get into that school. So, and it would present some bit of a challenge for them. You want to kind of have that on their list as well. Students should also be, if they have not already taken their SAT, they should take it. The next date is in October. And I believe we're in the late registration time of that process, but you can still register for October SAT. We do not send SAT scores or ACT scores to schools. They don't come from us. So please also know your logins for College Board, because if you are sending your scores to a school, you're going to have to go into the ACT or the SAT website and request for them to be sent. We're going to talk a little bit about Naviance. We're going to actually talk a lot about Naviance, but they will be requesting letters of recommendations, transcripts, etc. through Naviance. And also, we want to talk about NCAA. If your student plays a sport and they plan to play in college, they do have to register with NCAA and go through the NCAA clearinghouse in order to play. So if you have any questions about that, please reach out to your student's coach, our athletic director, Mr. Flurry, or your student's counselor. All right, so back to the college rep visits, because I know we mentioned that. We have right now schools scheduled to come through December 2nd. We add schools every day, sometimes multiple times a day. So what we encourage your student to do is to check Naviance pretty much every day and see if the schools that they're interested in are signed up to attend. We also try to, as much as possible, send out an email to inform you that a school has signed up for a visit. And so the student does have to register and sign up to attend the visit through Naviance. Now, we do encourage students to check with their teachers, because if they have a test or something important that they may miss, they want to be able to cover that, as well as, focus on the importance of attending the visit. Keep in mind, the representative that usually comes is oftentimes the person who will be reviewing your student's application. So we usually say, treat it like an interview. Come prepared with questions. Show that you're really interested in the school. Show that you ask questions that you really can't find the answers to on the internet to, really engage in conversation. The rep visits are usually somewhere between anywhere from 2 to 20 students. So it's almost like a small interview. I have had instances where a rep was impressed and came to me and afterwards and was like, who is that person? So you want to be able to impress yourself upon the rep at that time. If you signing up on it on Naviance and it's that time, just have your student check in with the counselor and we'll see if we can add them to the visit. But for the most part, you do want to make sure you sign up ahead of time, because we also want to make sure we're we have appropriate spacing and seating and things like that. Now, we've gotten the rep visits. We're now talking about we're ready to apply to colleges. So what do you do? What does that look like? The first thing I recommend that you do is review the application process and requirements for each school. Most schools have that information on their website. So for example, if they want 2 years of a language, but you've only taken one, now will be a good time to look through those requirements, because we are still in a space where we can probably make some adjustments for those purposes. We're done with schedule changes, but if it's for a purpose of an application, for a college admission, we can probably see what we can do. Also, they may, they may have information about the SAT scores or ACT scores that they're looking for. So it's important to just know what it is they're looking for to make sure that you meet those requirements. Very important, be aware of all deadlines. We're going to talk a little bit later about the different types of applications and deadlines, but the rule is a deadline is a deadline. So if you miss the deadline, most colleges will say, I'm sorry, you can apply for the next term. So please make note when you start your organizational system with your student, to write down or note whatever those deadlines are for those applications. We're going to talk about the different types of ways that you can apply to colleges. The Common App is going to be one of the most common ways to apply to college, but you can apply either by going directly to the school's website and applying on their website using the Common App or using the Common Black College app for HBCUs. So the Common App is something that we'll go into a little bit later. The Black College app, I know there's a lot of things, especially going around social media, about the benefits of that, because you can apply to almost, I believe, all HBCUs that participate with one fee. And then, of course, the website, sometimes the benefit to doing that is if they offer a fee waiver that you may not get through the Common App. The other thing that most schools are going to require is an essay. Sometimes the schools will say the essay is optional. However, our rule of thumb is if it says optional, do it, because you want to impress the rep and show that you're serious about the application process. And so what most of the English classes are doing is they've already started working on their college essay. Some junior classes have also been doing that as well. Now, your student might have English in the second semester, and that's fine. But what that means is that they may not have started that process yet, because they haven't had English. Have them still write their application, their essay, and then go to an English teacher that they are comfortable with or that they've had in the past. If they feel like I haven't really connected with the English teacher, have them come to their counselor, and their counselor can connect them with an English teacher to just double check the essay, edit it, give them suggestions, and really support them with that. In the past, we've had workshops, so I hope to bring that back as well. We've already talked about sending the SAT scores, and we will talk about using Naviance to request transcripts and recommendations. So as I mentioned, there are different types of applications and admissions and deadlines. The most common type of application is the rolling admissions application. And so what that means is that applications are accepted throughout the year. And when you submit your application, you usually get a decision within 4 to 6 weeks about whether or not you've been accepted. The second most common application is regular decision. And that's kind of when they have a deadline that you have to apply by, and then you have a date of when they roll out those decisions. So if the deadline, say, is January 20th, I'm just throwing that out there. If you've applied in October or if you've applied January 3rd, it doesn't matter. You'll still get your decision on that said decision date, which is maybe March. So, you may have a little bit of a waiting time if you apply earlier for a school that is regular decision. But then there are early action, restricted early action, and early decision. The two most common applications here are early action and early decision. Early action is basically you apply by an early date and you receive a decision early. And there's benefits to it because especially if, this is a school that you really want to go to, you kind of beat the crowd, you get your application in. Deadline for early action is usually around November 1st. So for those early action schools, we will probably start submitting those applications now. And you kind of get a decision, say somewhere around December. This is a process that's, it's beneficial. It's not binding. You can apply to as many early action schools as you'd like. Now, if you're applying to a restricted early action school, then what that means is that it's still not binding. You don't have to commit to that school if you get accepted, but you can't apply to other schools' early action or early decision. But then with early decision, it's very similar to early action where you're applying early, you're getting a decision early, but that decision is binding. So what that means is if you get accepted to that school, you are basically saying that I am committing to going to that school. Under no circumstances will I change my mind. So if another school gives you more financial aid or a better scholarship, that cannot be a determining factor to withdraw. You are saying that if I get accepted to this school, I am going to withdraw all of my other applications. And so, be mindful if you decide to apply somewhere early decision. All right. Now, what do the students need to do? The students should complete a release of records form. We had in assembly, we kind of, the counselors broke up into different sections with their students, and we met with the students on um, Tuesday. And so we've had this presentation with them already. We talked to them, we gave them a release of records form. If they somehow misplaced it or did not grab one on their way out the door, they can come into the counseling office and there's a pile of them for them to grab. The release of records form is essentially saying that you are giving us permission to send their records and documents over to the schools that they're applying to. So without that, they cannot request transcripts. We cannot send transcripts. So it's really important to make sure that that is completed as soon as possible so that we can get the ball rolling on these applications. Of course, what they have to do is submit an application to the colleges. Some come with fees, some require essays, some require resumes. Again, check out the websites to find out what those requirements are. Then we're gonna have students log into their Naviance account. You can access Naviance by going to the website, the Cheltenham High School website, and under the students page, the same way that they can access their Power School or their Canvas, Naviance is there as well. And they basically have to match their Naviance and their Common App. And again, we'll get into that later when we talk about Naviance, but that will, sync the two systems together. But when they do that, they have to complete the FERPA. The FERPA is basically saying, do you allow your counselor to submit your letters of recommendation? Are you waiving your right to see your letters of recommendation? Yes or no? And it's giving us the rights to be able to be a part of this process. I'm going to skip the College Board stuff because we've already talked about that. And letters of recommendation will be requested through Naviance, and transcripts will be requested through Naviance. So, as I mentioned, the Common App. Well, what is that? So the Common App is a place where you can go to apply to multiple schools at once. So back in my day, which, I'm so young, but back in my day, we had to write out applications to each and every school, and it took us hours. Then it transitioned to you can go to each and every school's website. And now it's at a place where you can go to the Common App and you're putting in the demographic information, the grades, all of that stuff one time. And then you just kind of add the schools that participate with the Common App, and you will submit your application through there. Most schools, not all, but most schools participate with the Common App. It simplifies the process for everyone, essentially. And as I mentioned, because we work with Naviance, when we match Naviance and Common App, it simplifies it for us as well, because that's how we can communicate with the schools alongside your students' process. So what is Naviance? Because we talked a lot about that. Naviance is a web-based resource that allows for college post-secondary planning, right? So we're talking a lot about the tools that it can help with for the college application process, but it has a lot more tools that you can use. It has career assessments. So maybe your student knows that they want to go to college, but they don't necessarily know what they want to go for. Encourage them to access the career assessments under the careers tab or the self-discovery tab in Naviance. And most of the assessments are 10 to 15 minutes. Some are 20. But it basically breaks down their personality, their likes and interests, the things that they do well, and it kind of gives career suggestions, things in the field. And then it breaks it down even more to say, okay, well, if you're, interested in the medical field, these are all the jobs in the medical field. And it kind of helps the student think outside the box of what they just know. So I really encourage your student to use that resource if they're not really sure what they want to do. But it also helps you narrow down where you may want to go to school. There's a super match tool there, and it's like a filter system. So, you go online, you order some things, and you may, say, I want this red shirt in this size, from this place. You can do that through the super match. You can choose the size of school, the size of the class, what activities they have to offer, what majors they have to offer, what GPA they're looking for. And then after you put all that in the filter, it gives you a list of schools, and it says like this school is 100% match what you're looking for, or this school is a 50% match. And so that's another tool that students can use to kind of get the process started and get the ball rolling. But then for students who are ready to apply to schools, they're going to put in Naviance, the schools that they're applying to. They request all documents through there. And then we actually use Naviance to send those documents. So that's how we communicate. And that's why it's important to sync it with the Common App, because it lets us know what schools you're applying to, as well as when your applications have even been submitted. So again, students can access Naviance by going to the school's website, click on high school, click on students, and then select Naviance. Now, Naviance is a little bit different. You kind of create your own password. So students should have been in Naviance at least once or twice prior to this year. And so they would have created their own password. If they haven't accessed it in a while, they may not remember their password. No big deal. Have them reach out to their counselor and we can reset it. And Naviance will then send a temporary password, and then they reset it to whatever it is that they, want to set it to. So I do encourage you to have your student document what that password will be, because they will more than likely have to log into Naviance multiple times this year. Parents can also access Naviance from a parent portal. And so if you're already registered, then you're going to go through that same process to log in. If you're not registered through the parent portal, just reach out to your student's counselor and we can get you registered. And then you will have the same thing where you get an email from Naviance with a temporary password. Now, one of the other things that I like about Naviance is, remember how I mentioned there's a safety school, a target school, and a reach school? They have a college compare tab. And with that college compare, it tells you where you are. So I don't know if you can see my mouse, but if you can, right under that uh darkened or that bolded bar, it'll say the student's name. It'll say what their GPA is, what their SAT scores are, if they've taken them. And then you can put in the schools that you're interested in applying to, and it compares you. It says, well, this student's GPA is a 3.19. They're interested in Morgan State, which has an average GPA of 3.16 for acceptances, but they're also interested in Temple, which their average acceptances is a 4.03. Some of these numbers may not be completely accurate, but they're close. This tool only compares the student to the other students in our school, like that have applied from our school. So yes, students are applying nationwide to these schools, but it's giving you an idea based off of our demographics of what we have to offer, our school's profile, what students have, what their profile looks like of students who've been accepted or waitlisted or deferred or declined or denied. So it just kind of tells you where you are compared to the other profiles of students. It's a good way to kind of get started to know what category you're going to list that school under. So then what you want to do after you kind of get an idea of where you're applying, you want to go in and match your accounts, as I mentioned. The way that you do that is you log into the Common App and you click on My Colleges on the top bar. Then you select your college and you click on the recommenders and FERPA. That's that part where you're going to sign for the FERPA. Do not invite recommenders. So there will be school counselor recommenders, teacher recommenders. We do not use that part of the Common App. All of that will be done through Naviance. So make sure you don't invite recommenders through the Common App. But then after you do that, you then log back into Naviance and click on the colleges I'm applying to, click on match accounts, and then the colleges from your Common App will now show up in Naviance. So that's how we will know if you're, what schools you've applied to, what schools you're thinking you started the application with, and that's helpful for when we send out your transcripts and letters of recommendation. So if you're not sure of how to add the colleges, there's a colleges tab, and then you just click on that, colleges I'm applying to, and then there's this button over at the right corner, that red plus button. You would add it there. Once you add all of your information there, then you can request transcripts. Now, we usually say do not request transcripts until after your student has submitted their application, because so many times we have seen where transcripts kind of end up in cyberspace because we're submitting, they're submitting applications after we've already submitted transcripts, and there's nothing to attach those transcripts to. So after they submitted the application, then they go in and they request transcripts. Once they click on those request transcripts button, then it says, what type of transcript are you requesting? You always want to click on the initial transcript. That initial transcript includes grades from 9th grade through 11th grade. So it has your GPA and your grades, and it also shows what classes the student is enrolled in now. So that's what the initial transcript looks like. The final transcript is for when you're submitting the transcript to the school that you're accepted to, and like they want to see what's happened at the end of your senior year. We actually send that a different way. So under no circumstances should a student be clicking on final transcript and requesting transcripts that way. Then where it says after you put in the initial transcript, you're going to select where you want to send those transcripts. What schools do you want to send them to? Okay. Now, if you haven't handed in your release of records form, you're not going to see how to request transcripts. You're also going to probably see that match accounts tab. So if you're kind of like, I'm in here, I don't see what we went over, I want you to go back, check. Did you submit your release of records form? Did you go into Common App and do those things? Did you select to match accounts? Once you do that, then it's like a whole new world on Naviance. Now, when we talk about teacher recommendations, the first thing that I'm going to recommend is that a student talk to their teacher before they request the recommendation through Naviance. Make sure that the teacher is able to write the recommendation. And what they want to do, what I usually recommend and suggest to my students is even send them an email. Dear such and such, thank you for taking the time to write my letter of recommendation. I requested that you write my letter of recommendation because you were my biology teacher and I want to go into that field. You have been able to see how I was a leader in the classroom, how I grasped the concepts quickly, something that kind of shows, that kind of gives them why you asked them to write your letter of recommendation. And it kind of almost gives them like a little cheat sheet, right? So it tells them, all of the things that you want to do and why you want to do that, and then why they were selected to be that person. But once you do that, then you can, that is not the last step. The only way that their letter of recommendation is going to end up going to the school is if you request it through Naviance, because that's the only way they're able to submit it into Naviance to be sent to the schools. So determine which schools that you're applying to need letters of recommendations, because not all schools need them. Determine how many you need. Some require a minimum of 1, some require a minimum of 3. So you want to know that information. And then you add all of your colleges that you're applying to in Naviance. And then you start to add those letters of recommendations in there. Again, do not request recommendations through the Common App, only through Naviance. Please give teachers about 2 weeks to write letters. Right now, they've already started to be flooded with requests, and with all the other responsibilities that they have, if they want to be intentional about your letter, they need to have time to be able to craft a great letter for you. Once you have the teacher do that, follow up and send them a thank you, and then follow up again with them in the spring and let them know where you've been accepted, where you're attending, because we get invested in that, and we do want to know what your decisions are. Now, in order to request the letters of recommendation, again, you're going to go on that colleges tab. Pretty much everything you need to do is in that colleges tab, which is at the top of your Naviance bar. Once you click on colleges, you're then going to click on letters of recommendation. Then you're going to add your request. And once you add your request, you would select from the drop down who you would like to write that recommendation. All of the teachers who work for us should be in there. We do have some new teachers who may not have been added yet. We do have some teachers who have moved to like our EPIC program, or have retired, or have maybe left for other reasons. If they're still in Naviance, then you should still be able to select them. If they're not, then please reach out to your counselor. We'll see if we can get them added, but we would have to have like an active email. Otherwise, you can have them send a letter of recommendation directly to the college through email. You would just have them send it to the general admissions email address. Now, some of us also have like religious leaders or sports coaches or people in the community who you want to get letters of recommendations from. That's great. You can use them. Again, that will be something where you would have them reach out to the school directly to submit your letter of recommendation. Naviance is really only for Cheltenham High School teachers or and staff. So you can still use other sources for your letters of recommendation. They would just email your letters directly to the schools. And make sure you give them the addresses if they're going to mail it or the email address so that it makes it easier for them. Now, in addition to teacher recommendations, there's also counselor recommendations. Those are very separate. If you're applying through the Common App, it is required for us to have some form of a counselor recommendation to some extent. But some schools require written evaluations from the counselor. If that is the case, then you would need to email your counselor and let them know. You can't request counselor recommendations through Naviance. You would email your counselor, let them know that you need one. We will more than likely recommend that you go into Naviance and complete the counselor survey or the brag sheet that's in the About Me tab of Naviance. So it would be very helpful to have that done first before you reach out to your counselor. And also, again, allow 2 weeks because we have just as many students as well that we're writing letters of recommendations for. So, we want to be able to craft a great letter for your student. Once everything is done and we're starting to send things, let me tell you what's going to be sent. So students, once they request their transcript and they've submitted their application and we're sending it out, we're sending everything together except for the teacher's letter of recommendations. They will go separately, but your transcript goes with your letter of recommendation and your school profile. Your school profile is basically showing, the profile of the school, how many AP classes we have, how many honors classes, basically showing, how competitive the school is because you are, applying competing against students from across the nation. So they want to know where, we fit in. What does our A look like compared to another school's A? And so when you're requesting a transcript, but you also need a letter of recommendation, like that written evaluation, just know that the transcript won't be sent until the recommendation is written, and then they all get sent together. So sometimes that does cause a delay, which is another reason why you want to kind of get on your counselor's books now to get the letters of recommendations completed. Some schools require self-reporting where they're not looking for transcripts. More and more schools are looking for self-reporting. So like Pitt, PSU, Rutgers, they all have self-reporting. And so your student was also given a transcript when we met with them the other day. That transcript is what they can use to report what their grades are, because they're looking for what grades, what classes, were they honors, AP, grade level, etc. So use that transcript because it is important to be accurate. Because what we will do is if you get accepted into that school and you commit to that school, they're going to be asking us for a transcript and they're going to compare that transcript to what you've reported. It needs to be accurate because you don't want them to rescind a decision that they've given because it was inaccurate. So if you have any questions or need help with that, please let us know. Now, remember when I said that school is we're not done yet? We still have some, have to stay on top of our grades. That is because we send mid-year grades to schools automatically. So after the first semester, your students' grades will automatically be sent to every school that they've applied to through the Common App. There are many schools who are asking for first marking period grades. So maybe a student is deferred, or maybe they want to see that before they make a decision. They want to see where that student currently stands. And if they ask us for those first marking period grades, once we send it, that could be a determining factor. So you want to make sure that they look good at all times, because depending on when they ask, that's what we're going to send. But for schools that a student did not apply to through the Common App, if that school wants those mid-semester grades, please let your counselor know, because we don't automatically send it out to those schools. We only automatically send it out to all Common App schools. And so they may be looking for it and we won't know that they need to have it unless your student lets us know. We also send final grades or second semester grades at the end of the school year to schools that students have been accepted to. So again, they are going to require that, and they're going to compare that to what was on that 11th grade transcript. And so if it looks significantly different, they may have questions, and that may have an impact on a student's acceptance. Once you've kind of, figured out this is where I think I want to go, we encourage you to visit that school again, see if, things have changed, because as you go through this process, you learn a lot more, and something that may have drawn you to a school may change by the time that you're ready to commit. So before committing, we encourage you to check it out one more time. And once you're sure, please make sure you know that you have to send usually 2 deposits, one to secure your spot at the school and one to secure housing. Now, just from my own personal experience as a counselor last year, there were a lot of students who didn't submit their housing deposit. And I kind of heard a lot of stories about how they didn't secure housing and they didn't know what they were going to do. So that's just an FYI. However, whatever you think is best for you and your family or household is, what you think is best. But I wanted to put that information out there, and, so that we can try to be proactive as possible. Most schools have a deadline or a final decision of May 1st. And so we always celebrate that by having like a college decision day gear, like everyone comes in their gear, and we celebrate everyone on May 1st. So the other thing I want to mention, because I'm not sure if it's in the slides, but we also do instant decision days. Instant decision day is where the application rep comes to Cheltenham High School. Students sign up for it ahead of time. We have everything prepared, and they actually review a student's transcript on the spot and give them a decision on the spot. It's something that we do mainly in November, like sometime between October and December. Information will be coming out about it. We're starting to schedule them now. And it's so much fun. Like the students, we celebrate them. It kind of gets the ball rolling, especially for students who are kind of on the cusp of where they want to go or if they want to go to college. It's a great experience. We take a picture of them and we post it on the video screen that's out in the lobby. It's really great. And so students can get accepted by either applying through the Common App or even participating in the instant decision day. Not all schools do it, but many do. And then once you get accepted, we got to look at scholarships. How are we going to pay for college, right? And so as scholarships are that free money that you don't have to send back, that you don't have to pay back. There's no interest on it. And so we get asked this question a lot about scholarships. Naviance has a scholarships tab. We also use the FastWeb. Then there's also school-specific scholarships. Most schools could automatically consider merit scholarships. So merit scholarships are the academic scholarships, based on grades and GPA. Not all schools automatically, review for merit scholarships. So when you research that school on their website, under their finances tab or their cost tuitions tab, check that out to see what they recommend for scholarships. Some schools may automatically recommend you for or review for merit scholarship, but also have additional scholarships that they offer that you would have to apply for separately. So I still recommend that you go in and check out each school's website to find out about merit scholarships. Some schools also provide need-based scholarship, which basically is determined based upon finances. Another website that we use that's not listed here is goingmerry.com, like MERRY. I've had a lot of students use that recently, and some of my students have been awarded scholarships from that. And so I think that, that's worth mentioning. We also, our CSD Foundation provides scholarships. So that information usually comes out around, I think in the spring. So sometime between March and May. And we really encourage our students to apply for it, because essentially only our students are getting the scholarship. It's from our foundation, and they provide awards from anywhere from $100 to $5,000. And so we really encourage students to apply for those scholarships as well. If the scholarship that you're applying to requires a transcript, just email your counselor. We'll send that over. Just make sure you give us the information of where to send it. All right. So we're kind of wrapping up. I know we went over a lot of information. We went pretty quickly. So as I mentioned, financial aid is something that we're going to talk about. So similar to this, we will have a financial aid night on October 7th at 6:30, same Zoom link. And it will be presented by a financial aid officer from Arcadia. She will essentially tell you all the do's and don'ts of submitting a financial aid application, answer any questions that you have. But it is a more generalized type of presentation. However, we will also have a FAFSA completion night. And so that's a little bit differently. That has to be in person because we will have a FIA officer come in and essentially assist you with filling out the application. And so we just will require you to bring your documents and so that you can complete the FAFSA. I will say that if the application opens up typically October 1st. And before you can apply, you and the student will need an FSA ID. And that takes a few days to get because essentially you're putting in your social security number, you're identifying information, and they have to verify that before they can approve it. Once they approve it, then you can start the application. So my recommendation would be to apply for the FSA IDs as soon as possible. If you or another student in your household have recently submitted an application for financial aid, then you will probably already have an FSA ID for yourself. You just would need one for the student who will now be applying for next year. And then that is it. Do we have any questions? Mr. Bryant, do we have any questions as well? Please put them in the question and answer, and we both will be checking them. I'm going to
Most
stop
I was
sharing.
able to answer up before this, and one that just popped up now, is there a makeup night for FAFSA night if we can't make it?
Unfortunately, there is not the application. However, if you know now that you can't make it, send me your information and I will try to connect you with the application. If you're talking about the completion night, I will try to send your information over to them to see if you can set up something separately. And I'm going to put my email address in the chat.
Second question is, how do you apply for an FSA ID?
You would go to studentaid.gov the same way you would go to submit the application for the financial aid. And the first thing it's going to ask you is, do you have an FSA ID? And if not, please apply for one now.
Next question is the PowerPoint. Are you planning on sending it all out by email or will it just be posted on our website?
It will be posted on the website. I don't see why I can't send it out by email. So yeah, I can do that too.
Did you say the date of uh FAFSA completion night? Did you say that already when it's coming?
The FAFSA completion is, let me go back to that, is November 20th. So the financial aid night, which is the one presented by the financial aid officer at Arcadia, is October 7th. And the FAFSA completion is November 20th.
How do I apply to take the SAT?
You can go to the College Board's website, collegeboard.org, and register for the SAT through, it's very simple. As soon as you log in, click on the SAT, and it just is very self-explanatory from there.
Last one. In Common App fee waiver categories, are they usually honored?
Yeah, if your student qualifies for a fee waiver, so what will have a student qualify for a fee waiver is if they receive free or qualify for free and reduced lunch. So if they qualify for free and reduced lunch, they also qualify for the fee waiver. You would put that in your Common App application, and then the counselor would then have to confirm the student's eligibility. Good questions. Anything else?
I don't see anything in there.
All
No.
right. Well, thank you very much. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your student's counselor or my email's in the chat. You can reach out to me as well. Oh, I think, do we see more?
Yeah.
Um,
One, does it automatically send the fee waiver request to the counselor?
yes, it does. Once we log into Naviance, it will be there.
And this one says category says if you're eligible for Pell Grant, but you might want to reach out to your individual counselor for more details on that.
Exactly. I agree.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much. And we will see you on October 7th. Have a good night.
Thank you.